I didn't know what to say. And you really don't, because you're in the military and you have a different lifestyle. You are talking to different people than you spoke to when you were home, and some people get killed, you know what I mean? You begin to accept death as a way of life after a while, because you're fixing an airplane, you're flying in an airplane, and then some of the airplanes crack up.
Did you lose some compatriots that you knew in some of your crews or
Some,
anything?
one or two, yeah.
How did you
And
deal with that?
and you can't write to their parents because you don't know who their parents are. Nobody says, my mother and father are this. It's not, you just don't do that. I mean, some people know who their friends' parents are. Some, when they went home on leave, they told me, actually told their parents and they got together, but it's a rarity. I mean, it's uh, it's a lifestyle that you live with strangers who are not relative but are just people you work with. You have no personal
Connection.
yeah, whatsoever. It's
You're trying to achieve a common goal.
yeah, yeah.
So what
Well,
did you do? What did you do when you got back from the war? What did you do? What did you do when you got back from the war?
oh, the same thing that just about every kid who came home from service. What are you going to do? Some kids said, I want to go to school. I didn't say I want to go to school. So my father said to me, you're going to go to work
Doing what?
in the fur business. And that's what I did. In other words, he put me to work in the shop, and I was learning the fur business. And after a few years, I said, Pa, this is not the life for me. And he was, well, what are you going to do? What's a better life? I said, I'm going to be a sales rep. A what? A salesman? What are you going to sell? I said, well, they said they're going to give me a job with Dorsey Laboratories, and you're going to sell pharmaceuticals, Triminic and Tavist, to pediatricians. So I said, Pa, I'm going to sell to doctors. Well, that's a different story. But still, it wasn't the fur business.
But he could have used it as a business proposition because doctors' wives probably like mink coats.
Yeah. See, and my brother was in the restaurant business, and I didn't want to go into the restaurant business. The restaurant business is for the birds. At least I thought so.
Did you get married?
No. I went with girls for some time, and I thought I would get married, but unfortunately, that is one of the biggest mistakes I made in my life, was I did not get married, and I did not have a family. And that I consider my greatest mistake. I mean, you go to work and you save money and all of that sort of stuff, but there is nothing to getting married and being emotionally tied or emotionally willing to stay with somebody as long as you live like my mother and father for almost 60 years.
God bless them.
So I get married, and my brother never did that. He was married. My sister never married, and she was killed in an automobile accident.
I'm sorry.
And their final hope was, and I never became emotionally attached to anyone to the extent where I wanted to live with them for the rest of my life. And that I consider my greatest mistake.
Well, you can't force love. If you weren't that connected, then you can't force it, because it might not have worked for the best anyway.
No.
So I hope you don't live in regret.
I was just curious, what was it like seeing your mom when you came back?
Pardon?
What was it like when you saw your mom for the first time when you got back from the war?
That's hard to describe. It's a different lifestyle. You don't know what you want to do. You come back, and of course, when you're living at home, you have 3 meals, and you have a place to sleep, you have a home, and you're kind of a bum, which is the only expression I can think of, because like my brother said, I was a bum. He said, "What are you going to do with yourself?" And I said, "I don't know." And when he said, "I don't know," he says, "Well, I got a restaurant business in it." And then my father said, "Well, we got a fur business." "Don't worry, you'll know what you're going to do. I mean, you're going to do what we tell you to do."
Like
So
the
that-
military.
Yeah, so that was the way it was. But I did what I had to do until I was able to make up my own mind and I got some money in the bank. Then I decided I would go out on my own and sell. But
Did you
as
move? Did you move, or you still lived with your parents?
I stayed at home just about as long as my parents were alive. That was considered, my father told me that was my job, that was my duty. My brother and sister went to New York City, to Manhattan, to live in an apartment, and they said, "We don't want that for you. You have a family, you have a mother and a father, you have a duty to do whatever you can. You live your life, but you stay at home because you have a family. And you have a home. And you live with your home and your family until you get married, until you have your own family."
How do you think your military career influenced your life?
Yeah, that was the thing to do.
How did it affect your life? Did you learn something from it?
I don't think it affected my life any, because I did what I wanted to do. And my mother and father never stood in my way. And my mother and father never told me, "Don't you dare do this." Because first of all, I didn't do anything so bad that they should say, "As long as you're living here, you don't do this." I didn't do anything like that. I was as ordinary as apple pie. I didn't do anything bad. I didn't do anything exceptionally good, so you might say. I just go with the flow. I just went along with I didn't do anything that I can think of that was unusual.
So you shared with us that you enlisted because you had this strong sense of doing something right for your culture and religion and society. Do you feel like the way in which you served through the Air Force, you were able to achieve that objective?
Well, I think I made a mistake in not getting married and having a family, which was what my mother and father wanted me to do. That was the biggest disappointment that my family had, that I didn't provide them with a family, with grandchildren and children. That was the big mistake.
Did you feel successful, though, in your Air Force endeavors? That you were able to help the cause during the war? Because you had such a strong sense of purpose?
To tell you the truth, it didn't have a hell of a lot of influence on me. In other words, I accepted this as a part of a lifestyle, and I didn't think that this was anything that I had to follow, in order to be happy, in order to exist. So,
all in all, would you say your experience with the Air Force was positive?
yes,
Yes.
it didn't have any negative effect on me at all, other than the fact that I was truly sorry when there were accidents,
Mhm.
because we did so much to prevent an accident. And most of the people that I know did more than enough to ensure that these people who were flying would come back. So, because we went out on a plane and engine test and we came back, and when somebody went out and didn't come back, we stopped and we started to think, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there's an empty bed here
Mm-hmm.
in the barracks, you know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you feel about aviation safety today?
Aviation safety now is absolutely exceptional, because the things they do to make flying safe are beyond compare what we did in 1946, simply because the technology was not there. At 1942 to 46 was an experimental time because of the war, because people were flying, because there were other military activities. But now, I don't know how to put it, they don't do a damn thing unless they make absolutely sure that this is safe. They don't do anything in aviation today that isn't tested and retested and made absolutely sure that this is safe. So it's a completely different lifestyle. During the war in 1942, you never thought of being safe. You just thought of this is what you had to do. That's all.
For younger generations that are going to view this video, students and other folks, what message or what advice or what thought would you like people to realize about the greatest generation or your experiences?
Your experiences in your early life and in your adulthood don't account for a hill of beans as far as people are concerned. Because, in my opinion, people live for today. Certainly not for yesterday. And as for people living for tomorrow, they're few and far between, in my opinion. Very few people are thinking, hey, what am I going to be like tomorrow? I mean, most people, in my opinion, live for today. And yes, tomorrow we'll do this, but the day after and the day after, what will be will be.
Que sera, sera. That's very interesting. So the other week you were involved in a ceremony with Veteran Affairs and our local politicians, and you were acknowledged with certificates on behalf of Camden County freeholders and the Challenge coin. How did you feel about being a recipient of those honors?
Yeah.
How did it make you feel?
Pardon?
How did that make you feel?
Well, you think. You feel, it's hard to express how you feel. When a situation occurs, you have feelings for the moment, but rarely do, well, no, I won't say rarely, but not everything influences your life and your decision. The decision that you make is momentarily, I would say, but may not last, because you think, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have said that, and maybe I should have, because if things don't work out the way you want them to, you begin to think that way. But if things work out the way you want them to do, you very rarely give a good goddamn about, what would have been. I mean, if I had done this, would this have been there? No.
Is there any other comments or anything that you wanted to share with us before we finish up?
I was just interested, how did you end up from Brooklyn down into New Jersey? How did you end up in New Jersey?
Oh, that's simple. I got a territory and a car, and they said to me, if you want to go to New Jersey, we'll give you a car and a territory, and you can work and live there. We'll help you find a place to live. And I said to myself, I was born and raised on the subway. And if you're going to give me a car and I can drive around and I don't have to spend my life on a subway. My father spent his whole life on the subway going to 337th Avenue and back at 5 o'clock. And I did that for a couple of years. And you stand on the subway, who are you pushing? Get off my feet. I mean, yeah, it's a fact of life. Yeah. I mean, you stand there, you never have your hands at your side. So I said to myself, Dorsey Labs wants to give me a car. They said, yeah, we'll give you a new car every year. And we'll give you a territory. We'll find you a place to live. And so I said, stupid. I mean, I'm going to live my life on the subway like my father did? I said, yes. That's how I got to New Jersey. That's how I got here. And I worked for Dorsey Labs. And I called on pediatricians. And I had a very suburban life which I wouldn't trade to go back to the city for the world.
How long did you work for Dorsey Labs?
The,
Do you remember how long you worked for Dorsey Labs?
oh,
You were with them, it sounds like a long time.
so long I've forgotten.
Did you
Like
retire
30.
with them? You retired?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for like 30 years, something like that.
Wonderful. It sounds like you had a decent
Yeah.
career there.
So it's so long. It's hard to express, but it becomes part of your life and your lifestyle, and you forget about it. Oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid in Brooklyn, but it's way in the back of your mind because you have experienced a better lifestyle, a better environment, better everything. So unless you're real stupid, I mean, you say to yourself, this is for me. And the way I was raised, hundreds of millions of people resent the way they were raised.
Well,
And
if I may comment, with you being the youngest child in your family, you demonstrated some leadership qualities early on to make a conscientious decision to enlist, and you learned some new trades and skills, and then you